not because we're all about money, but we want to give away a lot of money. We have big goals for this year for All True Partners and for the Business Builders Weekly Show. But we're going to kick it off with some brutally honest business advice to help you build success in 2025. And as we've talked about, what is this show going to look like in the new year? I mean, we started it, I think, early Q4 last year, and really just wanted to give value. And as we ended the year, getting the feedback from everyone that has been a part of attending live, for those of you on Zoom or on Facebook or YouTube now, we're expanding where we're broadcasting this. The feedback has been that it's really helpful. It's a lot of value, and there's no fluff. And part of it is, I told the team, we want to have our personalities come out. I mean, when Tim's laughing because I've literally told him, say that. Be direct like that. And we're going to start it here. As business owners, we know that there's a lot of hard truths you have to swallow. Be willing to take that advice. But we're going to give you the brutally honest advice on every episode of the Business Builder Show. This is also becoming a podcast, so it'll be available on all podcast platforms here going into in February and March, and then on YouTube. And we'll have a lot more content coming out because there are a lot of businesses. And the reason why is, one, by the end of this year, our vision for Business Builders Weekly, and we want you guys to be a part of this, is to have every single week 100 people watching live, getting value and being impacted by the value that we're delivering to you guys and with you. And so much of what's coming out of the stories of working with so many of you, and then also reaching 10,000 business owners on a consistent monthly basis. And to do that, this is not about us. It's about building that community, because there's so few places as a business owner that you can go and be around other people who care more about people than they do their profit, who want to make a lot of money and make a lot of profit so they can use it to help and to bless people. Because at the end of the day, you make a lot of money and great, you're rich, you're wealthy, but what are you leaving behind? And what's close to my heart is, and I wrote it down for myself and I recite it often whenever I feel that pull to just make money, build something worth being known for, but leave something worth being remembered for. And so that's the legacy piece. But that's our mission for our vision for All True in this show in 2025, and in 2030, really our 5-year vision is to help 1,000 businesses, purpose-driven businesses, scale and grow. So that's huge. It's not a small vision. No. Tim's thinking through the numbers right now. I'm sure Heather is also. It's got to be scary. It's got to stretch you and to challenge you. But let's dive into it, because in this episode we're cutting through the noise, and we're going to cut through all of the fluff we've seen on YouTube, on social media. When it comes to business advice, there's a spectrum from the fluff, just make you feel good and you can get rich. And if you want to go from making $50,000 to being a millionaire in 12 months, here's all you have to do, to the unapproachable people saying, well, you're not as smart as me, so you should listen to me and you should buy my thing because you're not as smart as me. I'm going to say what most of them would say I shouldn't say. We're not smarter than you. You don't need us to grow your business. Business owners work with us for the same reason great business leaders hire amazing talent, because they want to do it faster and they want to have the support. They don't want to do it alone. So it's really about time. How quickly do you want to do it? And the faster you can get people who have experience and you can pull that experience in and leverage it, the faster you can move. So we're beggars telling other beggars where the bread is. That's what we're doing. So, although we're beggars that have made a lot of money and help businesses make a lot of money. So, not beggar. You get what I'm saying.
It doesn't get any raw than that. Well, let me shift some of the gear a little bit. As you guys probably know, and this team definitely knows, I love questions. So one of the things that really we want to not only ask of ourselves, but really ask you to ask yourself and kind of come along with us. But really, what is one truth about your business? And I'm asking you guys as well, but one truth about your business that maybe you're uncomfortable with and have found yourself avoiding in the past.
I'll start. This is why All True exists, because the hard truth is that I can't do it on my own.
Yeah.
I just can't. I've had launched multiple businesses on my own, and multiple with Heather, and I say that because for those of you watching, Heather's my lovely wife, my bride, who's been with me in every business. But even with, I didn't always launch those businesses with her. She wanted to help, she wanted to support, but one of the things you've got to learn as a business owner to grow in is to not only ask for help, but accept the help. I had a call with our marketing team today, and I literally told them, you guys have to hold me accountable and tell me to get out of the way, because I've done so many of these things on my own for so long.
Yeah.
I've got to, it's tension learning how to just let those things go.
Yeah. No. I mean, there's a natural order to things, and there's going to be setbacks with success. I was thinking about this earlier today, and as we're going into the NFL playoff time, you get one shot at you either win or go home. So one of the things I was thinking about is a game doesn't make up the season, and a season doesn't define a dynasty. In our world, it's a legacy, but how you handle the individual plays and concern yourself with the execution of each possession of opportunity will yield results you're proud of. You'll hear that word legacy, you'll hear the word purpose. It's something that really drives us, and it's something that gets me out of bed each morning. But if you build on that foundation of execution on a daily and consistent basis, the dynasty will come about.
Yeah.
So let's go into kind of another question. Now I'll ask you guys, but actually, let's get Tim, his personality coming out, because I know he will be brutally honest with this one. But if you had to let go of 10% of your business right now, whether it's people or services or processes, what would you cut today?
Well, it depends. My favorite answer.
I love it.
Realistically, when looking at any business, depending on where you want to cut, that question, really what you're looking for is the answer of what's the 20% that's generating the 80%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a law that exists in nature. It exists in business. It exists pretty much everywhere you look. 80% of your results are produced by 20% of the effort you put forth. So the foundation that you have in any business or in your personal life is very much, again, go slow down. Very much when you're looking at, okay, I got to cut 10%.
Yeah.
Well, 10% is 50% of the bottom.
Yeah.
But if it's only producing 20% of your results, most likely if you apply that 20 to 80% rule again, 50% of the bottom is producing next to nothing.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at what can you cut, there's a million things you can cut, whether people, expenses, vendors, relationships, and it's identifying what is my business actually producing,
Mm-hmm.
and then looking at it in reverse and saying, okay, based off what my business is producing, what isn't my business producing, and cut that.
Interesting. I'm a big visual person, so
Yeah.
when you're talking, I'm thinking in regards to like a ship.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the leak in the ship? And a lot of times, the pilot or captain of the ship is deckside, so he's not seeing the hole, and we'll use that as hole, but an alliteration for.
All right, so if you want to use Navy terms,
Ooh, here we go.
Yeah. So realistically, when you start thinking about a ship, if the captain, again, the CEO, the leadership team is looking forward, oftentimes the 10% that you want to cut is right behind them. That sounds brutal, but it's often because the people that you trust the most are often the ones that are being less efficient than they should be, because they get away with more. And so when you have a larger leadership team, often look there and their direct reports.
Wow.
So not at the bottom of your staff, that's a given, but most inefficiency happens typically 3 to 4 levels below ownership, because they get away with a lot more.
Wow.
Brutal truth.
So many are feeling that sting right now.
I was going to say, I've worked with so many companies in the past where it's a best friend that we've had to terminate. It's family that we've had to terminate, and those are hard conversations. Big decisions, but hard conversations. And the proximity is the part that gets you tripped up a lot of times, because how am I going to fire my mom that's been the accountant since we began this thing? Or we had a friend that was with a business owner since he was in middle school, and he was not doing his job. And having that conversation is hard. It probably took about 6 or 7 weeks to execute. But at the end of the day, his business just took off right after that, which we kind of knew it was going to, but it was coming to grips with how do I save my friendship and my business at the same time. Yeah. So making sure that all ships rise.
Yeah, so the brutal truth in that, to sum it up, every year, every quarter, look at your business and kill off the 10% that's not performing. And even Elon Musk said that. A video came out from him recently. He's talking about SpaceX and how do you scale a business. I mean, here's the amazing thing. He's not the smartest guy in the world. When you hear him speak, he's not the most articulate. He doesn't sound like a scholar, but he's smart enough to know the moves to make. And, cutting off the 10%, this is going to sound brutally honest, and these guys know me. My wife knows me even better. When I'll give it the hard truth, and I in my personality, my disc assessment, I have very little people pleaser. Oh. I have feelings. I just have very little people pleaser. So I'll light the building on fire and walk away with a smile, so to speak. But I've told my wife, I said, I've told her, and she's our controller and our chief of operations, I said, I will fire you. If you're not performing, I will fire you. And I've told these guys the same thing, but I've also said I'll fire myself. And so we have, it's an ongoing conversation, and you can avoid that awkwardness if you're having the conversation early and making it a part of your culture. We're here to perform. We're here to do the job, and if you need help, you ask for help. Don't continue to underperform without reaching out for help. So you got to think about your culture. Every one of us is expendable, including myself. If All True ever gets to a point where I'm the bottleneck and I'm the cap to what this business can do, I will hire another CEO who can take it to the next level. Because either way, I still own it. So I don't have to be the one getting in the way. Why do I want to get in the way of the thing that I want to grow so that I can go and do good work in the world? That doesn't make any sense. So make it a part of your culture.
To your point, the Elon Musk thing was, if you're going to take away 10%, you have to add back 10%. If you're not doing that on a quarterly basis, you're doing it wrong. And it was pertaining to processes, because typically if you're going to grow, you're always going to break processes and you're going to have to rebuild them as you grow. But you should always take a look every quarter at what processes you have, and some processes you're going to let go and potentially, hopefully, put them up into a system. Mm-hmm. But then you're also adding additional things. So if you let go of something, you have to be adding something back in that's going to generate revenue.
Yeah, and that specific quote is actually related to experimentation.
Yeah, yeah.
Elon Musk is a huge experimenter. He likes taking things away, seeing if it works. If it works without what he took away, why was it there in the first place?
100%. Yeah.
Like most of the time, it's because of just growth in the business. Mm-hmm. Businesses get bloated. So pulling something away allows it to have an opportunity to show its efficiencies. And then if you take something away and your process no longer functions, no longer produces what it was supposed to, put it back. It causes absolutely no harm to try something for a month or two, depending on your business cycle, so that you see results.
Tim says this a lot to clients. They'll ask, how do we get X result? And he'll say, well, it depends. What's your threshold for pain? And they don't like to hear that, because what he means is exactly what he said. You've got to be willing to experiment, to make mistakes. And so many small business owners, not meaning small in revenue, but a small and medium-sized business is anything under $500 million. So put that in context. Even people running a $200 million business are still considered small to medium. You have to be willing to not only make mistakes, but like Tim was alluding to, you've got to experiment. You've got to run the risk. You've got to have the courage to try that thing that may not work, and then be prepared to respond and pivot if it doesn't work. Because if you're not breaking your business on purpose, you're never going to find what works better. I don't have a problem doing that. I still find the tension. I have to rely on the team to keep me from experimenting too much and too many things at the same time. So, brutally honest truth, you got to cut some things and then put them back, and then cut them again and put them back.
Well, I think that's a great segue into kind of my final question for not only us as a team, but for clients and people that are joining this call. But are you ready to challenge your mindset to change? And I'll I'll even make a shift because I don't want to get caught in the thinking. I think a lot of times we as business owners, we can get stuck in the doing the same thing for the right reasons because they've worked, but how do we get them to do better? But are you ready to challenge your current way of doing things to reach the next level of your business success? And I want to just let that kind of wave crash over you. A lot of times we say we're open to anything until we're asked to do something. Mm-hmm. And then once we're asked to do something, we find ourselves in this just a churning of it's uncomfortable, it's clunky, I don't feel like the expert in the room when I don't have my talk track down, I don't have the process down, but if I change the thing, it might affect this thing. And right. To Tim's point, if we can pull the pin and walk away, there's nothing, if that grenade doesn't go off, we walk back, we rebuild, we do the same thing, we move on. The worst thing that we can do is give our team the explanation, or our clients the explanation that we do it this way because this is the way that we do it. If we can't articulate why we do it this way, then we've lost the sales pitch to ourselves on why we're doing it the certain way. And we need to always be innovating for ourselves, individually, as a team, as an organization, as business owners. So as we jump into 2025, I want you to start to think, what things have I been doing the same way and I don't even know why I'm doing it that way? Or we have a process of going to a customer's home or logging into a customer call this way. How are we pushing the boundaries of what we know versus what is possible? So I'll throw it back to you to kind of jump us into the conversation, but I just wanted to get us started with some questions.
Yeah. I love that. So here's we already did one of the brutally honest business advice, which is cut the 10%. You've got to experiment. You've got to go through that process. You got to build a culture of everyone knowing you're all expendable, including me as a CEO. There's a saying, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. So here's the brutally honest business advice. It's not where you start, it's where you finish is an absolute lie. It's not. Where you start doesn't always determine where you finish, and where you finish, you can finish bad even if you start well. So the truth of it is you have to show up consistently. You can start at the wrong place in business, and most of you did. You started out doing things that in a way that made no sense, and you did that for a while, and then you finally at some point realized for whatever reason, probably working with us, or heard something or talked to other business owners, and you pivoted and changed. And think of it this way. I did the math on it. I'm not going to go through the whole formula. To be honest, I used ChatGPT because it broke down like the algebra. If you're standing at the end of a football field and imagine you've got two green lasers and you're holding them an inch apart and they're turned opposite directions 1 degree. Where you're standing, it's an inch apart. At the end of the football field, it's 67 feet. And then as you go further and further, it gets exponentially wider. So we're talking about trajectory. Think about where you're at in your business now, and going back to the 10% that you have to cut. If you look at your business now, you're not willing to make changes, and you're not asking what needs to change, how do I need to change, you'll get 20, 30 years down the road, and you will be off track completely. And I like to say small adjustments affect big changes, but small mistakes can affect big consequences as well. So there's a really honest.
This just came as you're talking. You're either expandable or you're expendable.
That's really good. You're either expandable or you're expendable. So you guys let us know in the chat. Do you want to be expandable or do you want to be expendable? And the more expandable you are, the less expendable
you are.
Yeah, that's
really good.
Had
a client that actually, so just this small mistake, really big thing. In one of their systems, they're working with them. They have a system, ERP. There's one button that was not clicked, that did not collect sales tax for 5 years.
Holy
Imagine
smokes.
the tax bill after 5 years of what you're going to pay for it. in the millions, all because one button on their system was not pushed.
Yep.
It's a
small thing.
That's a small button, but a big button.
Yep.
Yeah. And this goes back to, we can go deep into this, we won't right now, but that goes back to how are your systems and your processes structured. If you're going to remove the 10% to constantly evaluate your trajectory, which is really what Elon's talking about, experiment, because you're constantly trying to identify what's our trajectory that we're on long term. You have to be tracking the data. You have to have access to it. And an example Heather gave, because she told me all about this, it was a lack of process. It was a lack of double checking. It was a lack of having the visibility on the data. And data doesn't lie. Data will tell you, hey, something's off here. So, and then the first exercise we do with the client is Tim and Heather look at the financials. And that tells us where things are at. If I look at their marketing and sales, I can look right away at the numbers and know, oh, something's off, even if we don't know what it is. So you've got to have these things in place, which is why we operate on, we'll talk more about this on a future episode, but the 4 phases of business growth, one of which is the foresight, where you leverage your systems so you can see the data to know where your business is going.
I think going into the lie of it's all about the finish line, I think there's so much value in the journey, and just kind of thinking through this. There's opportunity to develop personally and professionally in that journey. There's things that I know now that my 26-year-old version wishes that I could glean from today's version.
Yeah.
But if I am singularly focused on the end result of, I just need to get to retirement, I just need to be able to sell my business, I'm going to miss all of the lessons along the way. It also allows me to pursue and live in pursuit of my purpose. And again, if I'm singularly focused on the bottom line and it's profits over people, I'm going to burn through a lot of people. And we've probably all known at least one business owner that just burns through people.
And some business owners, they're okay with that, and some brag about it. They brag about burning through people. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, no, but like the last piece is a part of that journey is creating that legacy. How many lives do you touch? And this is something that I press business owners all the time. They will tell me, I've got 10, 15 employees and I'm not that big of a business. Well, my first instinct is to multiply every one of that 15 by 4. Now you're adding to that. And it's like, okay, now we're up to 60 people that your business is responsible for providing an opportunity for. And then we're not even talking about the important dogs and fishes and lizards and all the tortoises.
And we don't include cats, because that's why the movie is All Dogs Go to Heaven, because cats don't have souls.
But to your point about having, again, the focusing on the future and the getting there and the constantly getting the doing and not the being. Speaking from a person that, again, we have launched many businesses in the past, one of the things that he has grown a lot in the last several years has been present in the being.
Putting my business out there.
It's all positive business. But to be fair, there's a lot of business owners who get caught up in the doing all the time. They come home and they're super stressed out. And then now their families, again, potentially could present another stress to them because they're wanting to connect and be with them. Yeah. And there's just so much that you miss out on when you're just singularly focused on just get there, as opposed to actually being present in the moment, enjoying the process, enjoying the journey.
Yeah. Okay. The highs and the lows.
Yeah. Before we move on, let's tie in a business philosophy. We've talked about consistency and we've talked about experimentation. Those two things go against each other. It's true. So really what we're talking about when we talk about consistency and experimentation, it's about the foundation. On the personal level, you have the foundation of how you show up for your business as the entrepreneur or as the leader in your business. At the foundational level for your business, it's about consistency, making sure the processes are the same so that someone near the top can experiment and try things out. What if we do this? What if we do that? It's having the capability of having a couple people on staff that can ask the very important why questions. Why did that fail? What happened? Who failed? What processes? And so from a how we show up, or it's all about the journey, it's very much about, can we sit down and identify what's happening in the business, why it's happening, and what can we change so it either happens again or doesn't happen ever again, so that we can reach consistency from a business standpoint and experimentation from a leadership standpoint.
I also piggyback on that the experimentation, one at a time.
Yeah.
That's it. If you experiment more than one at a time, you will not understand the impact on the business, for one, positively and negatively. But then two, if you do multiple times, you're gonna tear your business down.
And let's simplify this from these degreed people. I'll give you the GED version, which is, think about grade school. Basic principles and steps of your third grade science experiment. You have to have your constants, you have your variables. So that those constants are the things you're consistent at. Don't change those. And your variables are the things you know that you can experiment with, that don't break the whole thing. Yeah. Like if you have 3 or 4 offers, keep those constant. The experiment is not, let's change all of them and see.
Change one.
Yeah, one. We've talked to business owners who, they just want to revamp the whole business all at once. Yeah. Like, that's not an experiment. That's
an overhaul.
Yeah, that's trying to overhaul your car while you're driving on the freeway with your family in the back. Not a good idea.
You didn't say that way? I just feel like we said
you gave the really smart version, so I'm talking to the people who are my level of intellect.
Yours was more confusing.
At least to me.
Different language. So another hard business truth, I'm going to pass this to Kirk, is, for these two, but they're jokes, is don't be afraid of getting power slapped. I'll let Kirk explain that one.
Yeah, I think however you have experienced your entrepreneurial journey, there are highs that you could not experience as an employee. But there's also lows. And I will say that one of the things that I've seen many times over is just the reality that being a business owner can be an incredibly lonely place. You've got no one to go up to. A lot of times there are nights, there are weekends where you can't go laterally to a spouse or significant other to drop confidence that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you can't go down to your team. And so you really have nowhere to go. And so business ownership can be kind of a slap in the face, and you really don't have anybody to talk to. You're doing all of these one-on-ones, and you're doing probably performance reviews coming out of December with all of your team members, and you're pouring into them. And who was pouring into you? I was actually having a conversation with a client 2 days ago, and he asked that very question. Like, who do I do one-on-ones with? And I simply told him, you can do it with me. Like, I want to be that person that you can be the exhaust valve on the water heater, if you will, or you just need to say, I can't get anybody to do what I need them to do, or I'm pursuing this goal over the next 12 months and I need somebody to hold me accountable. All of those things are available to you in this environment. We want, AJ was talking about community earlier. Community is not about a name or a place. It's about a group of people. And it's very simply defined that way. It's not a geographical space. It's not a city that you live in. It is a collection of people with a common goal and common mindset. I'm going to throw out, and maybe I can't see the chat, but I'm curious if anybody has heard the very important name Robert Kearns. Robert Kearns is one of those guys that you are affected by him every day. And if you're in Arizona, probably once every 3 months.
That's true.
But he invented what we call a windshield wiper, the intermittent windshield wiper. But one of the things that happened with him is he went and tried to license his invention, the intermittent windshield wiper, with the big 3 automakers. They entertained the meeting, did a great pitch. Ultimately, they brought engineers in the room, listened to his pitch. They realized what he was doing, and then said, "No, we're not interested." I think we're good with the way that we're doing things, only to find an intermittent windshield wiper on a Ford, Chrysler, and Chevy within the 12 months. The reason I bring that up is that's a huge slap in the face. A huge slap. He single-handedly made this invention. Yeah, we have windshield wipers, but you couldn't do anything with low rain and mist. And so the reason I bring this up is he battled for 12 years in the court system, not for the money that the windshield wiper was selling for, but for his name. He wanted his name, his legacy to be built on the fact that he and his kids in the basement had built the intermittent windshield wiper. And I bring that up because sometimes it feels like you're just going on and on. And you're trying to build this legacy, and you're trying to work on purpose, and you're trying to do the right things the right way. And you just have to keep fighting for your name, because while you may, in that 12 years, in his case, you may experience some really high highs, some good news from clients, or good news from contracts being closed. But at the end of the day, it's not about the money, it's about the name. And so fast forward to the end of this, unfortunately, he didn't have a lot of time to experience his victory, but he had about 3 years between the time that the case closed and he got awarded $50+ million in settlements from all the automakers that had intermittent windshield wipers on their cars. But when it all started, he represented himself because he couldn't find anybody to believe him that, one, he invented it, but two, that he wasn't in it for the money. And at the end of the day, he walked away with his name on a pivotal invention that affects all of us throughout culture. I mean, worldwide, we all have experienced the beauty of intermittent windshield wipers, but that came from one guy fighting day in and day out, self-representing with no legal background, just an inventor, a professor. But the thing that I want to leave with you on this specific thing is every setback is an opportunity. He created something from nothing. I mean, there was a windshield wiper. One speed. Hopefully it wasn't too dry. Hopefully it was just, you get one shot at it, you got to flick the switch on and off. But every setback is an opportunity. And the setbacks that we experience are nothing in comparison to the victories that we can experience with the people around us. I will tell you that a setback in something that I'm not passionate about is not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And when we talk about getting power slapped, it's you're pursuing your passion. You're pursuing something that you either have a passion for, you feel called towards, you have put your career, your livelihood, you've invested 40 to 50 hours a week for 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to have setbacks. But know that you're not fighting for the game. You're not fighting for the season, but you're fighting for the name that you're going to put on the back of each one of those jerseys. It's the one that you're going to be able to label your legacy with. And it's not about the thing you do, but it's who you do it with and who you do it for, and the impact that you leave.
Yeah. And in case you're wondering where we get this power slap idea from, Google UFC power slap. It's the most ridiculous thing. Kirk and I were talking about it earlier because he hadn't seen it. Yeah. And then he went and watched it. And
it's hard to watch.
It is hard to watch. It's not like just regular UFC because it's a good picture of what entrepreneurship is. You have to be a little off to want to be an entrepreneur, to choose to start a business and then go through all the ups and downs, all the heartache, all the frustration, because it's not this glamorous thing. If you see someone who said, "Oh, this is easy. I just became a multimillionaire in a year." Well, they're either lying in order to sell you something, or they're not. They didn't have that journey, and they're not telling you all the years that came before. Power slap is two dudes and the women actually too,
Yeah.
standing 2 feet from each other, and you just let the other person slap you in the face as hard as they can.
It's not easy to watch.
And hope does not get knocked out. It's really brutal. It's dumb.
Yeah,
it's really dumb.
No, it's definitely not a kids' TV show.
No. I've trained a long time to avoid getting slapped, and these guys are just standing there. It's crazy.
It's not something you're going to find me signing up for. I can tell you that.
No. But that's what entrepreneurship is. You're competing in power slap. You know you're going to get slapped, and you've got to be willing to take those hits and get back up.
Sometimes it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes people need to be slapped.
I've been slapped and road hauled. I mean, I equate my entrepreneurial journey to getting chained behind a truck and driven down miles of road. Like, that's what it's felt like.
Dark.
Yeah.
It's very dark.
I guess I might consider this a little dark. We're giving you the real stuff. No, but that's the, yeah.
Yeah, but why do you think that is? Why do most entrepreneurs have the experience of pain, and they have to have the resiliency or the consistency to stand up and say, "Thank you, sir. Can I have another?"
That's a good question. Because in order to grow, you have to experience pain. Whether you're working out or you're just a kid going through puberty, you have pain. There's growing pains. It's a real thing. And if you're trying to build a business, you're going against how the entire system is built. The Rockefellers started the education system to train people, to educate people to become factory workers. It was not built to create entrepreneurs. Our system and our society doesn't want you to become an entrepreneur, because then you're breaking out and you become independent. So it's pushing a boulder up a very steep, very slippery hill, and people are throwing more rocks at you, and it's raining, and there's mosquitoes. It's, the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, why am I doing this?
Talk yourself out of it.
You can't focus on it too much, because you will talk yourself out of it if you really think about it. But that's what it is. You gotta not think about that stuff and just power through and continue to grow.
I think it's working through that stuff with a very defined, very very defined reason or outlook on things. It's not the easy way.
No.
And I don't think anybody that's been through it would disagree with that. But as you're talking, I'm thinking of business owners that I've worked with. I am one of them. School was incredibly hard. You're asking me to do something that I'm not naturally good at, which is sitting still for 6 hours a day, working on things that I don't understand. Now, you put me in a situation where I can move and I can be more kinetically stimulated. I'll crush that.
But that's exactly, that's the training. If you're going to work in a factory, stand here, do this job for 8 hours a day. And it's psychological. There's Myron Golden calls them the government indoctrination camps, is what he calls schools, because that's so much what it is. We homeschool our kids now, and they do 3-4 hours of school a day, and then they're done. And then it's half an hour practice your ukulele or your guitar, half an hour practice your martial arts, then half an hour read. After that, free time, and it's so much more productive. I'm a middle school dropout. I finished 6th grade I finished 5th grade from 6th grade through 12, senior year. I did the equivalent of like a year's worth of schoolwork very sporadically. And I'm actually thankful for that, because I didn't get the indoctrination of school, and my confidence doesn't come from having that education. I picked up books. I read articles. I got around entrepreneurs and business owners.
Yeah.
I didn't have to unlearn so much of what school teaches. It never worked for me anyway. And I'll contend I'm a very intelligent person, and I'll go toe-to-toe with any MBA, and I know more about business than they do, because I've been around people like you guys and been in the trenches, and people like this, and that's where you learn business.
I will also say that business owners, sometimes you have to. They have to. They have no other choice. If you think about most corporations nowadays, if you try to go get a corporate job, You're required to have a degree. You're most likely required to have a master's just to get in the door.
Yep.
If you don't have, if you don't get into a big corporate job, you're still looking for the other little guys looking for experience. And so if you don't have experience, or you do have a degree, no experience, or you have experience and no degree, you're kind of out in the dark. And so the other option is to what? Okay, let's take a risk and start the business. This is the only thing I have, so this has to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, student loans, they'll give you up to $200,000 in unforgivable loans.
Oh, man.
SBA will give you $75,000 with a good idea and a dream.
Right?
That, I'll tell you what, we could talk about the college as a scam and all that stuff. That'd be a whole nother episode.
I'll just say this.
Unless you're in finance and accounting or the
exactly.
trades,
Yes.
that makes sense.
College is what you make of it. It serves a purpose. When you go to college for a degree that doesn't serve a purpose, then it is a scam.
Mm-hmm.
But there are degrees that are in college that I would not want to work with you if you did not
100%.
go to college.
Oh, yeah, I don't want my doctor saying I learned this on YouTube.
Yeah, self-taught doctors. No, thank you. Self-taught lawyers. No. Self-taught finance guys. Probably not.
Depends.
I want to have entry level. Like you have to work with someone. There has to be a where did you learn this and who from, not YouTube.
I think finance. I think that the maths of the professional world have a little bit of leeway because I do think you can self-teach yourself that. But again, that's with a self-taught and loads of experience, practical experience on the ground. But yes, otherwise everything else you need a degree for sciences.
And I think this is a perfect transition because again, going back to the theme of the call, consistency and experimentation. How do you experiment with knowledge?
There's knowledge and there's wisdom. Knowledge doesn't become wisdom until you apply it, and that's the experimentation. Implement it here. Did it work? If it didn't work, if it did work, what did I learn from that? That experience now becomes wisdom, and that's the difference. And so, like with college, you can go to like Heather. She went to school for political science and history.
Yes, good job.
African American studies.
Save the night.
She's still doing African American studies. And then went back and got her MBA. But she didn't get her MBA until after she had a decade worth of...
That's about 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years worth of
just
accounting
know,
experience.
I wasn't confident in my skills, or I wasn't confident what I thought I knew that I knew. But that was because, again, I knew the concepts, but not the formal terms for those concepts. And so I decided to go and getting a very expensive MBA to be like, do I really know what I know? And turns out after a lot of money, I did know what I knew.
And that's the thing college teaches you, that you didn't need to go. Or that you already knew. But here's the caveat to it. I'll be fair in it because I'm very opinionated about college. If you're studying a degree where it's something that never changes, math doesn't change. Math is math. It doesn't change and evolve. Like numbers are numbers. I mean, what was a few years ago they came out with
Common Core.
Core. Yeah, that's some idiot trying to change it to be special. No, math is math. The numbers don't change. So if you're going to go to college for that, you need that foundation. But if you're...
That's where your statement is wrong, because the numbers aren't changing, but how they're adding the numbers and how they're applying it is changing, and that's the problem.
Yeah, well, you're kind of making my point. With business, business changes so fast. Like, I laugh if someone tells me I have a degree in marketing. I'm like, great. Everything you learned was outdated by the time you graduated, because it changes so fast. It's psychology and it's people, but you don't. That's the stuff you have to learn by interacting with people. So, as business, I forget where we were started with this point, but yeah, college is a scam. So there. Perfect segue. Here's a brutally honest business advice. You need to be the biggest idiot in the room. In this room, I'm the biggest idiot. And I think I proved that sufficiently. But here's what I mean. I'm the smartest at what I'm really good at, but I have to always operate like I'm the biggest idiot, like I know nothing. So I stop and I listen, I ask questions. So I learn more and I understand more than the average business owner about finance and accounting and HR and these operational things, because I ask a lot of questions, because I always approach it not only from curious, I approach it as if I'm an idiot. And the word idiot just means someone who doesn't know, someone who's uneducated. So You need to be that person and constantly come from that place with your team. Otherwise, you will have an ego and you won't hire people smarter than you. And if you happen to hire people smarter than you, you'll do what so many CEOs do, and you won't listen to those people, and then those smart people will leave, and they will go become your competition. And this has happened over and over and over again. Sometimes it's you have CEOs who are humble, and they actually empower people. Hey, you've got great ideas. It doesn't work in our company. You should go do that. That's the ideal situation. But more often than not, it's, we're not going to listen to you. We're not going to do it that way. Okay, cool. I'll leave, and I'll go start my own thing.
Yeah.
That's what I did. That's what Heather did.
So let's, for the sake of time, let's kind of close the conversation down for tonight. This conversation could literally go on for another 3 hours if we get on the right thing.
I think everybody would stay too. We could do it Joe Rogan style.
Not tonight.
No. So, I want to leave you guys with a few thoughts here. There's, as we want you to be a part of this. So what I want to encourage you to do is invite other people, invite business owners if you're getting value. And as I look at who's on here, you guys are you here every single week? So I want to ask you, invite other business owners to come, because we don't charge anything for this. We don't do a bunch of sales pitches. We give value, and this is really, for us, is a way to just deliver massive value to as many business owners as possible. We want to reach 10,000 minimum this year who've attended this call, and just this, that doesn't include through content and all the other things that we put out. But we want to make sure that we're able to reach more and more people. And if you're signed up for this call and you get the reminders, we're going to send out a quiz that we created as a resource, because we talk about the 4 phases of business growth. We want to give that to you as a resource. It's in an ebook. There's no cost to it. And we're going to send that out, and you take a quiz to identify, it's questions about your business to identify what stage your business is at. Because when we talk about trajectory and how to have a great year in 2025, you have to understand where you're at and the gap between where you're at and where you want to be at the end of the year, so you can reverse engineer what action you need to take in order to do that. And then, if you're, that's really it. Go check out the website, invite other people to this call, and help us grow this thing so we can reach more business owners with the value that you've gotten. So we appreciate all of you. This was the start of the kickoff of season 2 of the Business Builder Show. So we appreciate all of you. Thank you for joining us every week, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Business Builders Weekly Show.